Welcome to this tutorial for making a PowerPoint game on your Mac. These instructions are a little different than the PC version of PowerPoint, so if you're looking for the PC version, check out the other link available on my YouTube channel. So to get started here, there is a setting that you're going to want to set up before you even begin the process of building your game, and that is to enable kiosk mode. And basically what that is a mode where if you're presenting your slideshow, you won't be able to advance the slides with your mouse or with the keyboard presses on the keyboard, which is a critical part of your game. You don't want people to be able to skip through your levels just by pressing a space bar or something like that. So to turn on kiosk mode, what you have to do is go up to slideshow on your ribbon and then click set up slideshow. And then check this little area here, this little selection box under show type to say browsed at kiosk, and click OK. Once you have that set up, you're ready to go. If you have any questions about making PowerPoint games, or if you want to share some games that you or your students have made, you can email me at evan.andre@craw.org. That's on the screen right now. It'll also be available in my presentation. So the basic idea here on screen 2, the basic idea of a PowerPoint game, at least this PowerPoint game, there are different kinds you can make. But in this game, the point is to move your cursor. So your cursor is your hero in the game, and you are trying to move your cursor across the screen from this green start block to the red exit block. And you want to avoid any obstacles or enemies along the way. So here is an example of a level entrance slide. So each level in your game will actually need to be 2 slides. You need one slide to act as the entrance point for your level and to act as the respawn point if you die or fail to get to the other side. So this is what a level entrance slide could look like. It could be as simple as just having a couple instructions on the screen and then an area where the player will have to put their cursor onto in order to advance to the next slide. So to see how this works, it will not work in edit mode here, so we have to go into presentation mode. And to see how this works, all we do is move our mouse over that area. So we're now in the level. So just to explain that a little further here, this area should be in the same place and it should be the same size as that area within the start of your level. This prevents people from entering your level and dying right away because they're in a wall or they run into an enemy or something like that. And then once they're in the level, I'll go back into presentation mode here. Once they're in the level, they will navigate, just like you can see I'm doing on the screen, around any obstacles. In this level, we just have walls that we're going to avoid, and if I bump into a wall, then you can see I'm taken back to my level entrance screen. So every time I make a mistake, I get bumped to this screen. And then we go back in, and the only way to exit the level or to progress is to get to the exit point. So how do we do that? So let's exit presentation mode and we'll look at how that's done. So on slide 6 here, we are going to program or set an action over this space. This is our start space in this example. So to do that, what we want to do is select that shape. This can be any shape. It could be a picture. It could be one of the built-in shapes from PowerPoint. It could be an icon from PowerPoint or a 3D model. It could be a picture that you find online. It could be an animated GIF if you want to copy and paste that from online. That's fine too. So what we have to do is select the shape, and you got to be careful here. You don't want to click, if you have words on your shape, you don't want to click down in that area because you will start to see your little blinking cursor there, and PowerPoint will try to program this action to the word rather than the shape. So what you want to do is click somewhere in the shape, make sure you don't see a blinking cursor, and then you go up to the Insert button on your ribbon and click Action. You want to be very familiar with this button. We're going to use it a lot. So Insert Action. And this is what the Insert Action screen looks like. Be very careful here because there are actually two very similar looking tabs. One is for a mouse click and one is for a mouse over. So what's the difference? If I program an action for a mouse click, then the user will click the button on the mouse to make that action happen. So for example, if I wanted them to click that button and hyperlink to a specific slide in a presentation, I would do it like this. You know, maybe I want the button to hyperlink to slide 3. But we don't want to use a mouse click in this case. You can, but I prefer a mouse over. A mouse over, all the user has to do is move their cursor over top of that shape, and then the action will happen automatically, no click required. So I'm going to select mouse over and then hyperlink, and I'm just going to hyperlink to the next slide, which will be the level. So this is the entrance to the level, and then this will take us into the level. We'll click OK. And let's test it out. We'll go into presentation mode, mouse over start, and here we are on the next slide. Let's hit escape and let's make a level. So we already have our start location. Now on this slide, this start shape does nothing. It's just a shape. On the slide prior to it, that start button is a link to the next slide, which is this slide. So what we want to do now is to make the exit block our way out of this level. So to do that, we're going to use the insert action again, choose mouse over, and we're going to hyperlink to the next slide. So that is the only shape on this whole slide that will advance us to the next slide, which in this case would be slide 8. Okay. So now we would start here, move our mouse over to this point to move on to the next level, but there's nothing really in our way. There's nothing challenging about getting from here to here, so we want to add some obstacles. And for this level, we're just going to add some walls. So to do that, I'm going to go up to Insert Shapes and get my rectangle tool here. I'm going to draw two walls. I'm going to draw a wall going across the top here. So a wall running horizontally. And then I'm going to draw another wall going vertically, just like that. And now what I need to do is make these walls send me back to the starting slide. In other words, if I run into the wall, I have to start over on the level. So to do that, I select the wall one at a time. You can't do this with multiple shapes at a time. The action button will be grayed out. That's unfortunate, but that's just what we have to deal with. So I'll show you a little shortcut here. So we are going to select one wall at a time, go to Action, mouse over, not mouse click. You're going to do that at some point. You're going to have to go back and correct it. It happens to everybody, including me. So mouse over, hyperlink to previous slide, because when we hit the wall, we got to go back and start over. Then click OK. And now do the same thing with your up and down vertical wall. Action, mouse over, hyperlink to previous slide, because we have to start over. Click OK. Now I could make all my walls and code them individually one at a time, but that would take some time, and depending on how many walls I have, that could be quite tedious. So a shortcut, if you hold the Command key and click and drag, so I'm sorry, it would be control, not Command. I'm working on a Mac here. The Control key. So the command key won't do anything in this case. It's got to be control. So we're on a Mac, it's the control key. And every time you hold the control key and click and drag a shape, you make a duplicate of it. So you can quickly make walls and obstacles just like that, and have something of a little bit of a maze going pretty quickly. So I'm going to shrink that wall down, and I'm just going to make a couple. Oops, gotta hold the key first, then click and drag. Sometimes it doesn't work, but usually it does. There we go. Okay, so before we test this out, I just want to point out that I put walls all the way around this portion of the level. If I were making a regular level, I would make sure to put walls all the way around the perimeter of the slide. That would prevent the player from cheating. If you don't have walls around the slide, they could potentially move their cursor completely off the slide and go around obstacles and then sneak back in on the other side of the slide, press exit. But if you put walls around the whole perimeter, you can't do that. All right, so I'm going to go back to slide 6 and test my level here. So I'm going to go presentation mode, hover over start. Now I'm in the level, and I have to navigate around these walls. I'm going to crash into one on purpose here. Whoops, got to start over. And you can see how we now have a little bit of a maze. When I get to the end, that takes me to the next level. So you could have your students make simple mazes with just those instructions, and they'd have a lot of fun with that. But of course, there's only so many things you can do with mazes, so that will get stagnant kind of quickly. But it's a great place to start. The next thing you're going to want to look at is bringing in some animation and the concept of having enemies in your levels. So let's do that. So on this slide, this start block has already been programmed, but you'll notice it's smaller and it's moved. Before it was in the bottom left-hand corner, now it's here. And when I hover over it, you'll see why. I had to put that start block in the middle of the screen because this level, I want the player to start in the middle of the screen. So you want to make sure your start block is the same size and in the same area on the entrance block, the level entrance slide rather, not block, and then on the actual level itself. That's important. All right, so on this particular level, all the walls have been coded already with the actions. The mouse over will send you to the previous slide. We don't have to do that. This exit has already been coded so that it sends us to the previous slide. But we have this enemy here, this little spiky ball. I just found this PNG on the internet, had a transparent background, so it looks pretty cool. That's a little tip if you want to make enemies. Look for PNGs or graphics with transparent backgrounds. They'll look a lot nicer on your PowerPoint. So the first thing we want to do is to make this an enemy. We do it in the same way that we coded the walls. We just select the shape, go to Insert, Action, mouse over, not mouse click, and then hyperlink to the previous slide. So if I bump into that spiky ball, just like if I bump into a wall, I have to start over. But of course, that's not very interesting, and it's not very different than a wall. So we need to give this enemy some life. And for that, we're going to go to the animation button on the ribbon. So there are lots of tutorials online about how to use the animation tools in PowerPoint. And just by building a game, you're going to learn a ton about how to use these different tools. The first thing you need to understand is the difference between these green, yellow, and red animations. So if I choose a green pre-made animation, then that object will begin hidden on the slide. and then depending on how I set that animation up, it will wait for a specific action, and then whatever that object is that you applied that animation to will show up. The yellow, when you use a yellow animation, the object will be on the screen at the beginning, and the yellow will just it will give it a movement or something flashy to kind of make it stand out. The red makes the object disappear. So if you have something on your screen and you want it to go away at a certain point, you would use a red effect. And you can use multiple effects for the same object. So I could, for example, create a button that when I click it, this spiky ball would appear from nowhere. Then I could have another button where I click it and it would spin or do something from the yellow animations. And then I could have a third button that makes that shape disappear. So these things are all, you can use them in different combinations and in different orders to make cool things happen. And then you have paths. This is what we're going to use right now. So a path is just putting an object on your screen in motion. And they have a lot of different pre-built paths. You can certainly get away with just using the pre-built ones, or there are custom ones on the top where you can draw your own paths, which can be fun, and you can do those for all different reasons. You can pull off all sorts of different things. In this case, I'm just going to use the basic shape path on this ball. So I'm going to click that, and it will preview the round shape path. I actually don't want a round shape path, but that's okay for now. So then I want to edit that path that I just had, but I don't see it. So this is where the animation pane comes into use. So under animations, if you click this button right here, a little window will slide out, and this is where all the magic really happens with animations. So any animation that you have on your screen will appear on this list. So right now I just have one animation. This is the path for this ball. And when I click on that, you'll see that my path is now visible. And if I click on that path, I can edit it. And in this case, what I'm going to do is go up to the effect options at the top, and I'm going to change that circle to a square. And it'll preview. And when it's done, I'll have this little dotted outline. And so what I want to do is I want to click on that path and make it bigger, because I want the spiky ball to travel around this area like so. Okay, so now let's dive into these three drop downs. Some of the things that you can do with animations are found up here. Some of the buttons are up here, but not all of them. All of the buttons and then some more things are hidden down in these three little drop downs. So you want to get familiar with these. So for now, we're going to go to effect options, and we are going, nope, let's do timing first. Sorry, we're going to go to timing first, and where it says start, it's set to on click. That means that little spiky ball is not going to move unless the user goes and clicks on it. Well, I don't want that, because I don't even think it would be possible. They wouldn't be able to click on it because the ball would send you to the previous slide. So we need to change that to with previous. Now, if you only have one animation on the screen, with previous means it just starts automatically by itself. So with previous, duration is basically the speed. How long does it take for that ball to go around that path? I'll keep it at 2 seconds for now. A delay would be if I wanted to delay the start of the animation. So maybe I wanted the animation to start a half a second after the slide shows up. I could do that there. But this one, we want to look specifically here under repeat. I want this ball to travel around this shape again and again and again. So I'm going to go to until end of slide. That will repeat permanently till I move to another slide. Now let's run our slideshow and just see what the animation's doing. There it goes. You can see the spiky balls moving, and that animation repeats. Now the only thing at this point that I want to point out is that it's not a consistent speed. You notice it slows down before it gets to where it started at the beginning, and then it ramps up and it repeats that. So we can control that. If we exit out of here, we can control that under Effect Options. Under Effect Options, we have this smooth start and smooth end. If you uncheck those, then that will be a consistent motion again and again. Another option that's under here that you might want to use for some of your enemies is auto reverse. That means basically, if you think of like the old Goombas in Super Mario Brothers, how they walk back and forth in a set pattern, that would basically be this. So your shape would go to the end of the path, and then it would go back the same way it came, back and forth. So that's how you would pull that off, auto reverse. Okay, so we have a path. Now let's add another animation. Let's click on that shape. Now you want to be careful here. If I have the animation selected in my animation pane, and then I click on another animation, it will delete my path. So what you want to do on a Mac is select the object and then add a new animation. So in this case, I want to do an emphasis animation here, so one of the yellow ones, and I want to add a spin so that the spiky ball is spinning as it's following its path. So I'm going to click on spin. And now if you look in the animation pane, you can see the second animation there. And now we have to customize those parameters. So let's start with timing again. Under timing, we want this animation to go with the previous. So in other words, when it's running its path, we also want it to start spinning. So both of those will happen at the beginning of the slideshow without any clicks. We want to repeat until the end of the slide. So in other words, repeat forever. And I think that's all we need for this one. This one doesn't have the smooth start and smooth end. You could change some other properties, but that I'll let you play with that at a later time. Okay, now let's run our presentation. We should now have a ball moving consistently around the screen, and it's spinning the whole time. You could make it spin faster, slower, all those things. Those are within your animation parameters. Okay, so let's test out our level. I'm going to go back to previous slide, my entrance slide here. I use colors. The colors in the background kind of help indicate when you're moving on to a new level. So this is like the red level. All right, we're going to start here. And now I want to move up into that opening without bumping into the spiky ball. So just for fun, I'll bump into it once. Okay. And now I'm going to try to avoid it. Good. And then I can get to the exit. Great. So before we move on to the next one, I just want to show you really quick. Once you make one enemy and you have it all coded the way you want, you can just hold that control key and duplicate it as many times as you want. So you could quickly fill a screen with enemies. So, and if I wanted to have this enemy, and maybe this one's going to go a slightly different path, I could do that. There are options up here. If I go to my path animation, maybe I could choose a different path, or I could go under effect options up here. So I could change the shape of the path, or I could say reverse path direction. And then that would make the balls go in opposite directions, which will make that level a little bit more difficult. Cool. All right, time for level 4. I guess I skipped level 3. I'll have to fix that. Level 4, purple level. So once you and your students have enemies and mazes down and you're kind of starting to figure out how to do those, and you're comfortable with that, you can start bringing in more complicated things like keys or buttons or any sort of other objects that will cause something else to happen. So in PowerPoint, when something is caused by something else, they use the word trigger. It's a trigger. So let's go into this slide 11 and I'll explain the idea behind this one. So in this slide, so everything's already coded for us, but what I want to do is I want to start the level with the exit block being hidden. So the player starts, they don't see an exit, but they do see a key. And what they would have to do is to go over and click on the key to make the exit appear. So whenever I'm teaching this with my students, I tell them they need to think backwards. They need to think about what the end result is going to be and create that animation first. And then they can link that animation to a specific object to make that animation happen. So in this case, I have a key and I have the exit square. So what I want to do is animate the exit square appearing and tell it that trigger to trigger on the click of a key. So let me walk you through that. So right now, before we get to the animations, now is a good time to show you something that's going to come up for you and your students. So there is something built into PowerPoint called a selection pane. To get to it on a Mac, there's 3 different ways. You can get to it if you're on the home ribbon and you click on the arrange drop down here. There's a button for it down here, selection pane. That will open it up. Looks like this on the right hand side. You can also get to it under arrange in your top menu and go down and click there. Or you can also get to it if you have an object selected and you're in shape format. A selection pane is available right there. And what that's going to do is open up another window right next to your animation pane. So you can, when you're making your game, you can kind of switch back and forth between these 2 windows. So what the selection pane is it shows you all the objects on your screen. And they appear in their visible order. So the object that I have here, in this case my slide number, that is on top of everything else that's below it. So that will be seen over everything else. And the object on the bottom of the screen, in this case I have a rectangle, that is covered by everything else. So you can, first thing you can do that's kind of nice here is you can rearrange objects and move them around so that they're on top or behind different objects. But the main thing that we want to do here is find out what is this shape called, because we're going to need to know it in order to set it as a trigger. So I'm going to select that key, and it's called rectangle 27. Had I not known that when I would be coding this, I'd have to go through each of these other rectangles to find out which one it was. So it's rectangle 27, and what I'm going to do is just rename it. So I can double click over here where it says rectangle 27. Actually, you need to click on it once, then double click, and you can call it key. Now I know that's my key. My exit block has already been renamed, and I renamed some other things in here. I have my enemies here are called red-faced baddies. And you can see those are just groups. This is how you visualize a group from the selection pane. It just shows up as a drop-down like this. So I made these enemies with just a shape and a little PNG of an angry face on top of it. Grouped them together. So now what we want to do, let's go back to our animation pane. Select the exit block. Remember, we're working backwards, so we need to add the animation that will make this block appear. because it's going to start hidden and it's going to show up. So appearance animations are green. So I can choose any of these green animations. Any of them will work. They will all start as hidden and then show up. So I'm going to pick something like dissolve in. That works. You'll see a little preview of it. And it will show up in our animation pane. There it is. So now what we need to do is configure the trigger that's going to make that animation happen. And if you look down here, you have triggers listed right here. You also have triggers listed on the top. Either place will allow you to do the same thing. So I will show you down here first what this looks like. So I'll just open this little area, and it's right by default it's set as part of a click sequence. It just means whenever you click anywhere on the screen that will show up, but I don't want that, so I'm going to switch it to on click. And then look, I have a drop down here of all these objects. Thank goodness I named mine key. So I'll click key. So whenever I click the key, that exit sign should appear. So let's go to the previous slide and see if this works. Hover over start. You'll see I do not have an exit. So I'm going to go up and click on this key. Got to avoid the bad guy there. When I click on the key, boom, exit shows up. And now I can leave the level. But I think I also want this key to disappear when I click it. That way, if people didn't see the exit, if they missed it showing up, they know they did something, that click did something. So here's how we handle that. So you'll notice over here, when we added the trigger, it got its own little section. So this says trigger, key, and then the exit appearing animation is under that. What's cool about triggers is you can drag any animations from up in this area down into the trigger that you want. So making the key disappear when I click the key is as simple as selecting that key, and I want to choose an exit effect because I want the key to disappear when I click it. So I'm going to choose one of these spin. I'll just do a checkerboard here. Get a little preview of it. All right, now here's the animation on the right. This is the animation for the key disappearing. If I want that to happen when I click the key, I just have to drag this down. And now it's part of the trigger of clicking the key. The only thing we need to fix is we want the key to disappear with the previous animation. So right now I would have to click on the key twice. Once to make the exit appear, twice to make the key disappear. We don't want to do that. We want the key to disappear with the previous animation. So I'll select that, go to timing, and click with previous. Now with a single click on the key, we should have the exit appear and the key disappear. And there it is. And now we can exit the level. Okay, great. So with just these concepts, there are hundreds of different types of games you can make and hundreds of different puzzles and animations. It's really, the list is almost limitless. I've been amazed to see what kids can do with just these concepts. So let me just show you an example of a level I did with just these concepts that is a little more interactive. So this is already coded for you. There's nothing you have to code, but I just want to show you how it works. So the basic gist with this level is I have an exit up here behind this fence. So I need to unlock the fence. In order to unlock the fence, I need to find the key, but the key is hidden underneath one of these bushes. So I also have, just to spice it up a little bit, I have these meat-eating looking groundhogs that are going to be patrolling back and forth, so I have to avoid them as well. So just to show you a breakdown of how I did this, I'm not going to show you where the key is, you'll have to figure that out. But basically what I did is I just added exit animations to the bushes. So each bush I added an exit effect, and I made a trigger to activate that exit effect when you click on that object. So I started with one bush, made it an exit effect, and added the trigger of the click on that bush. So it looks like this. Over here you see whenever I click picture 4 disappears. Once I had one bush coded like that, I duplicated it using the control key and just made as many as you see on the screen. Then I just took my key and put it behind one of the bushes, and I set up that key just like I did on the previous level, except when you click on the key, it makes the gate disappear. So just a different way to use that same concept, just in a different way. So let me show you how this level works just a little bit. So when I hover over start, now I'm in the level, and I can click on the bushes. I have to avoid the groundhogs, and I would have to click to find the key. I'm not going to find it for you. I'll let you do that on your own, but this just gives you a sense of what you can do. Okay, congratulations. You passed the course. You're now ready to start making your own levels. I look forward to seeing some of the examples you and your students come up with.